And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this, and then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism.
Folks, we will go back out to your phone calls. I was going to go straight out to them, but since Jay mentioned the founding of Israel, I have a pretty interesting video to illustrate this. One of the videos that we played yesterday, and that it's gone moderately viral online, where a caller called in and talked about Israel being a Rothschild project. Some people had an issue with that, saying actually it was a lot of different families, but the Rothschild family has played a oversized role, and in fact a primary role in creating the modern state of Israel. And here's clip number 13, the head of the Rothschild family laying this out and celebrating it. Let's watch clip number 13 here.
In modern Jewish history, and it begins with three words.
Face you can trust.
Dear Lord Rothschild.
Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great-uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours, Arthur Balfour.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this, and then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Chaim Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including members of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm and conviction. He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. And then he's, starts to fight a difficult battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home. And then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community. But you come back to the big point, which is that this is perhaps the greatest event in Jewish life for thousands of years. And it's a miracle.
It's a miracle. Yeah, it was a miracle. he looks and sounds like a cartoon character, doesn't he? What a wonderful thing that we did here. Now, a couple things that I didn't mention there. For one, the Balfour Declaration was, in fact, made in exchange for the Rothschilds and the other Jewish families to exercise their influence in America to bring America into World War I. So Britain was having trouble with World War I, wasn't sure they were going to win. They thought, what can we do to bring America in? America at the time was hugely against involvement in the war. We'd never been involved in a foreign war. The American people weren't for it. American politicians weren't for it. They thought, if we can make this deal with the Rothschilds to give them a Jewish homeland, then they'll use their influence to bring America into World War I. So that was sort of the deal that was made there with the Balfour Declaration. And then, of course, there were those stipulations in the Balfour Declaration saying that you had to treat the Arabs nicely. Of course, the people that actually went to populate Israel were radicals, didn't want to do that, and instead of continuing to exist under the British authority who had given them the land, they instead committed terrorist attacks against that British authority and drove them out. Another interesting topic, just while we're on it, I saw this post not too long ago. Consider for a moment that Nathaniel Rothschild sat in the English House of Lords for a lifetime position, and yet he only spoke to the chamber on 2 occasions. One of these occasions was to ask the Parliament to assist the settling of 100,000 plus Jewish settlers in the then British-owned Palestine. This makes sense. The Rothschilds, after all, were a leader of the Zionist movement in the early 20th century. The other speech Lord Rothschild gave, milk pasteurization. Now, why on earth would a man, part of a billionaire dynasty that practically single-handedly invented the Zionist movement, care about milk pasteurization as much as he cares about the moving of Jewish settlers into Palestine? Why are these of equal importance? Just an interesting historical tidbit there for you. So, is this a holy and ordained by God recreation of the biblical state of Israel, or is this a Rothschild plot? I guess I'll leave that for you to decide.
So you want somebody to stand up against the globalists. You want somebody to fight the New World Order. Well, if you're looking for that, I'm your man. I want to thank you all for your previous support. I want to thank you all for making The Great Reset and the War for the World a #1 national bestseller. It's had a huge effect. We've topped it. This new book has just come out. It's available at InfoWarsStore.com, signed or unsigned. It is incredible. It goes through the entire globalist master plan, their activities, what makes them tick, and then we lay out an alternate plan for humanity. And unlike the globalists, we're not ordering people to follow our plan. We're simply giving alternatives to the dystopia they're building. That's why it's the Great Awakening, defeating the globalists and launching the next great renaissance. What they're selling, owning nothing, having nothing, eating bugs, castrating our children, cutting our daughters' breasts off, World War III with Russia, human smuggling, open borders, drag queen pedophile time. What they're selling is so unpopular, we've got to oppose what they're doing, but also give an alternate plan. And that's what this book opens the debate about. It is powerful, it is riveting, it is informative. I have poured my heart out. And the book is a lot thicker than my last book. It is quite the read, but it's a fast read. It's a informative read. It is a blueprint for victory against the globalists. So get your copy of The Great Awakening, the plan to defeat the globalist and launch the next great renaissance, at InfoWarsStore.com. You can get it at Amazon. That's great. We want to push to #1 again, but we get a lot more support when you actually buy the book from InfoWarsStore.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139. We're fighting hard. I want to thank you for your past support, and I want to encourage you now to go to InfoWarsStore.com and get your copy, signed or unsigned, of The Great Awakening, because The Great Awakening is happening now.